when you first start a marketplace, you need to create what we call a single player game. So it's, as you said, starting a business is really hard. Now, starting a business trying to serve two different constituents is twice as hard. And so you have to pick one. And so you have to create value for one side of the marketplace before you create it for the others. So we created a platform where the single player game was, we wanted to create a credible place where when a salesperson made a claim, there was data backing that claim.
Hey y'all, how we doing? We are back for another episode of Hospitable. Hospitable is a podcast powered by OmniBoost with the idea of exploring how we can make hospitality more human through technology. And so that's why I'm excited for my guest today, half of the twin founders of Hotel Tech Report, Jordan Hollander. Jordan, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Yeah, so, really, I love your kind of story. You founded Hotel Tech Report as a twin myself. I love my twin. He's my best friend. What's it like starting a company with your twin brother? How did that, take me from the beginning. How did this come to be of you and your brother co-founding this company together?
Yeah, I think in general, it's starting a company is really hard. And I think any two co-founders will go through ups and downs, right? As the business ebbs and flows in the early days and you're finding product market fit and you have differences of opinions on things. Naturally, like, any relationship, there's points of tension. But at the same time, I think, as you know, probably as a twin, there's no one in the world that you trust more when shit hits the fan, when things are tough. That's the person that you trust with your life. And I think there's, when most people are out there looking for a co-founder, you're kind of like taking a leap of faith with someone and you hope that it all works out. But when you have a twin, you've got to, for us, it was a 32-year track record or 30-year track record of what the other person's like. So that helps a lot in those tough moments. But kind of going back to the founding of Hotel Tech Report, I'll give it the 10,000 foot view. So Adam had started a company called CityKey, which was a platform that helped hotels sell off-property experiences. The idea was kind of like where Groupon will package, a spa offer, a local tour and activity, and then sell it to Groupon customers. The idea was that hotels have all these customers coming into their properties. What if the hotel could create these partnerships and then monetize them to drive, ancillary spend? And so I joined on with Adam to work on that business during my second year in business school. We got about $250,000 of equity-free financing through grants and pitch competitions, and eventually got into an accelerator with Pritzker Venture Capital, which is the family that founded Hyatt. And while we were in that accelerator, we were in Chicago in the River North area, and we set up an experiment where we sent emails to all of the GMs in the area. We obviously gathered their email addresses, sent them cold emails with email tracking, and we didn't get a great response rate. And so our advisor at Pritzker Venture Capital was like, guys, you got to get outside the building. Why don't you just go into these hotels? They're all around us. Go to the hotels, ask for the person that you emailed, and just see what happens. So over a 2-week period in Chicago, really sweaty summer days, we're walking around these hotels, and we talked to 70 different individuals who we had emailed and either didn't open or they opened our email, but they didn't click or didn't respond. But we knew they opened it, so they saw our message. And we kind of came up with a few insights about why it was so hard for us to scale. They were like, guys, look, first of all, in this market, we're getting about 200 emails a month from vendors. And not all of those are technology, but a lot of them are. And so we can't respond to all of them. So we ultimately just ignore most of them, unless we have a really acute pain point that we're dealing with right now and it hits spot on. But how often does that happen? So you guys aren't there. And they're like, of the companies that are interesting, half of them tell us they're the best company in the space. So I don't know how everyone can be the best company. There has to be some sort of hierarchy here that we don't know how to validate. And the other half tell us there's such a new innovative product that there's no competition, there's no one like them. And they're like, no offense, guys, but you fit in that second bucket. You want to turn my marketing manager into a Groupon sales rep. I don't know where this fits in my P&L. I don't know how to pitch this thing to my ownership group. And so they're like, that's kind of the challenge that we're facing when we're getting outreach for technology sales. And they're like, there's another part that makes it even harder for us. And the other piece is we have this adverse risk reward profile. And so the idea, they didn't say it in those words, but that was kind of our analysis of what they were telling us. They were like, if I'm the GM of the Hard Rock Hotel Chicago, and I say, CityKey is a great product, I really want to work with them, to my owner. And let's say there's a GDPR breach, there's bad reviews that come from it, some kind of bad experience for guests. That my owner remembers that I said this was a great product, and there's personally vested negative downside for me if I promote this product internally and we adopt it and it goes poorly. If it goes well, if we try CityKey, we're driving new revenue and it's going well, I'm not going to get a promotion. I'm not going to get a bonus. It's like, great, you did your job. So it's kind of like things go well, business as usual. Things go poorly, you're the SOB who said we should try this thing. And now what are you doing with your life? And so all of those dynamics coming together, tons of vendors in the space, lack of information, and this adverse risk reward profile. And they're like, we're just kind of not going to do anything. Like, our hotel's operating, like, we'll just control what we can control and keep moving on.
Yeah.
And so, expediting it to our insights here, we saw that, we needed to create a way for the vendors needed a way for these hoteliers to diffuse responsibility. So first of all, they needed to see, like, what is the actual ranking of products based on data? There was nowhere for them to see that. Mm-hmm. The second thing they needed to see was a way for them to share information with their owner. So instead of that Hard Rock GM saying, we love CityKey to their owner, they could say, we really think this CityKey thing could be interesting. We think we could drive, a 10% increase in total RevPAR. But look what other owners are saying about this on this profile where there's real-time reviews, and make a decision for yourself, owner, so that the owner can actually take responsibility without having to get involved in a sales demo and getting deep into this. Because a real estate owner who owns a $40 million revenue property doesn't want to deal with $800 a month subscription. Like, they need a lightweight, bite-sized, accessible way to do that. And so all these things coming together, the V1 of Hotel Tech Report was creating something that was easier for us to sell, so that we had reviews on the platform. The Hard Rock GM could say, go to the profile to the owner, make a decision for yourself. And they could say, look, this is the number one in the upselling category at the time. And so we ended up going to pitch at High Tech. And this was initially a part of our blog that was designed to just drive us new demand for our product. We pitched, we went to High Tech, tried to get other vendors on for collaborative marketing, that we had like 70 signups in the first day. And so the rest is history. We realized there was a much bigger opportunity in what we were doing with this than the old product, where we could help all technology companies deploy faster and more efficiently into hotels and create better information and more transparency for those hotels as a result. And so, fast forward to today, we have 290,000 monthly users. We work with almost every company in the space, from all the publicly traded companies to startups in Brazil and Israel, and everything everywhere in between.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool to hear that kind of story. And having founded my own company in my previous life, and going, working at accelerators and going through that process, really understanding and realizing that a lot of times your initial idea isn't always the right one. It's the starting point, and it's going onto the market and iterating, which I think is really cool that y'all did. And for those that don't know, Hotel Tech Report is the hotel industry's app store where millions of hospitality professionals discover the best software and technology solutions for their properties. And that's, Omnibus is obviously a proud partner and on the Hotel Tech Report family, and do some stuff with there. And that's why we wanted to have you on. And what I really, love about Hotel Tech Report is the fact that there's connectivity, right? And so I want to get into, this podcast is all about, how do we make hospitality more human through the use of technology, right? So talk to me a little bit, when you were building kind of versions 2 and 3 and really making this place a connection place, what was that process like? Of, you saw, you went to High Tech, you saw this thing happening. Talk to me a little bit about where like the big moment of like scaling really started to look at. What was the insights? What was the data? What were the reviews? What were the thing that really started to like hit that acute pain that hoteliers saw, but also software companies were able to really connect the dots of why they should be connecting onto the platform?
Yeah, totally. So the way that we thought about the evolution of a marketplace, and this kind of maybe even goes broader than hospitality, is when you first start a marketplace, you need to create what we call a single player game. So it's as you said, starting a business is really hard. Now, starting a business trying to serve two different constituents is twice as hard. And so you have to pick one. And so you have to create value for one side of the marketplace before you create it for the other. So actually, the funny enough part was the first problem that we solved was on the vendor side, where these sales reps were going out and saying, we're the best XYZ in our space. And the buyers didn't believe them because there's no validation or data backing that. So we created a platform where the single player game was, we wanted to create a credible place where when a salesperson made a claim, there was data backing that claim. And so the second phase of once we had all the vendors on board and we were creating value for them by helping them close more deals through trust and transparency, that it's not just like, here's a case study that we increased revenue at Hotel ABC by 6,000%. That this is something that really backs those sales claims with authentic, unfiltered and verified reviews. So now there was the value there. And then the next phase was getting the hoteliers on board, and that's all growth marketing. That's really what a lot of what my job is day to day, getting to that 290,000 user number. And so that was really the scaling point. Like the first part was like very slow, wiring up, getting the vendors bought into this. So like this could actually be the thing that helps you sell faster and differentiates, because there's so many products in a lot of different categories in our space, or it helps understand some of these more niche products like our former business was. But the scaling point was really when we figured out demand gen and where the hoteliers were, and they were on Google, they were on LinkedIn, they were talking to their peers and figuring out mechanisms to tap into that, where hoteliers in the past just didn't have that information. And so they pushed all these conversations off to the side. They're like scared of technology. They think it's like a foreign language. And the reality is this stuff isn't rocket science. Like SaaS has gotten, so much better. The integrations have gotten better. If you look at any other vertical of software or horizontal software in the business space, it's moving closer and closer to mimicking what we use in our personal lives. And so if you can now have a property management system that has a similar UI to like Instagram, obviously it's not going to be that simple. There's more functionality needed. You no longer need to worry about all of the hardcore IT and architecture questions. Sure, it matters like where your data is being stored and what kind of certifications are out there, like ISO and PCI compliance for payments, and all that stuff is really critical. But any person who works in a hotel could go and evaluate software, and that means that they now have access to information they didn't have access to before. Whereas 20 years ago, it was a CIO who was making a software decision and then telling their 10,000 front desk agents at a management company, hey, go use this software I picked. Whereas now everybody can have skin in the game. Everybody can make an opinion. And that's really what created all of this search traffic in our space, is like lots more hotels were searching for software. And that's what we really tapped into. There wasn't any good information out there prior to Hotel Tech Report.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it's really interesting, right? When we think about, especially the hotel space, um, when you walk in, you want that experience, right? Whatever that lobby experience you're looking for, you walk in, you go check in, and the more that whoever is running the front desk, whoever is involved in that customer experience, the more that they could be present and have the right technology, right tools. Like you said, if it's built more like Instagram, somebody can walk in and execute that, right? So that onboarding becomes really
Yeah.
easy to onboard new hires. They can get up to speed faster, which means they can then excel at their job faster, right? I think
Yeah.
what we notice, especially back in the day, is you lost that knowledge. If somebody left, you lost a lot of customer knowledge, process knowledge, day to day knowledge. But now with different technology tools, you can really leverage that and make that a more seamless experience, whatever hotel property around the world is,
Yeah.
and having with the world shutting down and the way hospitality reinvented during and after the pandemic, evaluating software and making sure you have the right software, the right tools, the right tech is really, I mean, important. So having a place
Yeah.
that makes it easy for people to find, I think is really cool. What was y'all's affinity to hospitality? Was it something that you always wanted to be in? When Adam started City Key, did he knew
Yeah.
that hospitality was a space? Was it something that you grew up in, or how it just kind of fell into it? Talk to me a little bit about why hospitality. Why did that niche really call to y'all?
Yeah, I think. Well, I was also working at Starwood at the time when Adam was working on that business. But I think it's the same calling that we all have to it. It's like something that's super relatable. So I think when you're young, like everybody's traveled, and you can understand that. And most people start with like a B2C idea in the space. But going to business school, you realize that B2C ideas and travel are really hard, and there's a huge graveyard of those types of companies. And so the next thing you think about is like, okay, well, like scaling a trip planning app is really hard. So you kind of look at, okay, well, like, are there ways that I can get there faster, or with a lower risk profile? And you start to look at the other constituents in the space. But travel is the thing that connects all of us. I mean, every single special occasion, whether it's a honeymoon or a bachelor party or a family reunion, it all centers around travel. All of our best memories, all of our most salient memories, something everyone can relate to. And then when you think about that from an economic sense, it's one of the biggest industries on earth because everybody experiences it. And so it's something that just really creates meaningful connections amongst people. But then you have those like really shitty experiences where you get to the hotel and they overbooked, or you go. My mom is a huge she used to be a huge Wynn fan in Encore in Vegas, and she would go 3 times a year, big gambler. And every time she would go, and this is an amazing hotel company that has done amazing from a brand perspective, from a service perspective, in many respects. She would get to the front desk and they would say, "Have you been here before?" Like every single person. It's like, "Yeah, I was here 3 times this year already." And so she's actually moved to another property now after like 10 years as a loyal Wynn fan. But it's those kinds of like little interactions where a hotel drops a ball, and most of that is related to technology. How hard is it for it to pop up on the screen with her recency, frequency, monetary value from their CRM, and her favorite game, and are you going to go play Hold'em today with so and so dealer, etc. So I think that's really what drew us to travel, is the connections, the memories, and then trying to think more practically about how do you participate in this space in a way that maybe isn't on the consumer side.
Yeah. No, B2C stuff is a lot of fun, but hard to go up. But I mean, you also, you went B2B in a way, but also creating a marketplace is really hard because you talked about the chicken and the egg, right?
Yeah.
Conundrum. But you showed us how you drew value to one side first and the other second. I think that's where most marketplaces fail, is they try to build value simultaneously, which is not always easy to do.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool, on how Hotel Tech Report's really driven that value. And then you think there's a lot of ancillary reasons why Hotel Tech Report's really impactful for businesses too, from link backs to a place that you can share articles, to the ability to connect with your peers, the ability to just drive another place that's not just your website, because your
Yeah.
website's great, but sometimes you know it's really easy to create a website. So having that kind of other place that you can kind of guide to, see a score, see reviews, and tie those loops together provides confidence, right? So tell
Totally.
me, when you look at, data is obviously super important. You just shared this story about your mom, and I've worked in sales and marketing my whole life and used every CRM out there, and CRMs are great, but they're only as great as the data that you keep in them, right? So similar to a marketplace. So what are some of the things that you see as we scale and hospitality continues to grow globally? What are some of those trends that you're seeing from data, and how we leverage that data, from your view of what you're doing with Hotel Tech Report?
Yeah, in terms of how we leverage data or how technology vendors are leveraging data.
Technology vendors.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, it really depends. You can kind of go category by category. If you're talking about CRM, like we've all seen those emails that's like, the hotel that you stayed at for a work trip that sends you like a come back for Christmas. And you're like, well, you're a business hotel. And like, like
Yeah.
I was there for a work trip and this isn't the right occasion and they don't have the right tagging and segmentation. And so I think we're getting better at understanding the types of data we need to capture, because historically, we didn't have that information. We have recency, frequency, monetary value. We don't really have any sources to enrich the data with social profiles, or other audience data that we can enhance. But if we're thinking about it, instead of sending me instead of going after your entire database, or the last 2 years, anyone who's spent more than $1,500 with you, and saying come back for Christmas, you could look for people who have traveled for an anniversary
Yep.
in the last 5, 10, or 15 years. So it's a meaningful anniversary or an engagement, and invite them back at the right moment for that. But in order to do that, you need to understand that there was that special occasion there. And so that's understanding the special occasion data. And if you don't get that in the reservation, you could get that through guest experience software. So like whether that's a messaging system or a contactless check-in, you could be asking the right questions to understand that guest. And so I think those are the kinds of things on the CRM side that are getting really interesting. The fact that like we're starting to capture the right data to make those better campaigns happen. On the revenue management side, obviously, like revenue management's been way out ahead in terms of using market level data in terms of forecasting demand. There's so much data out there, and the revenue management companies like Duetto and Ideas are obviously doing an incredible job there. On the guest experience side, I think they're getting really good at obviously like AI is a huge conversation right now, generative AI, and naturally like generative AI has started in the guest messaging space, just because it's like it's call and response, which is exactly like what Chat GPT is, and a lot of these vendors have been doing this for years, maybe in a more rudimentary way, where it's like anytime the keyword towel or the keyword pool hours comes in, that we have a canned response similar to what we have with Intercom on Hotel Tech Report when you guys are writing in. But I think the guest messaging players are getting really good at leveraging an GPT-4 type model to really have a conversation with a guest and analyze what are their needs and feed it back to them the right information. So I think there's some really interesting stuff happening there as well.
Yeah, I think that's really unique, and it's really exciting to see how that's going to play in. Um, are you all using generative AI in any way in your build out of the product and future releases?
Yeah, so Intercom actually has released a product called Fin, that basically it's generative AI for customer support. And so we also host our help center, so it has all of our documentation about the platform on Intercom in their help center product. So now, anytime someone asks a question, Fin can actually query our entire help center database that has all the information about what dates do the Hotel Tech Awards start, and how does the HT score algorithm work, and how do I place an advertising request. All those things can basically be automated. So we're starting to experiment with that a little bit. We've talked about doing like a chatbot consultant for hotels, but again, it comes back to structuring the data the right way. It wasn't how our database was set up, so we really have to plan for the future in terms of that. And there's one other project that's coming later this year, which we call the tech stack audit, which we're really excited about. Traditionally, the way that hoteliers use Hotel Tech Report is like you're looking for a property management system or a CRM. You come to Hotel Tech Report, you're trying to find the best matches for you. So you say, I'm a 57-room bed and breakfast in Stuttgart, Germany. Like, what's the best PMS for me? We query the database, we make recommendations. But that's all about someone knowing they have an issue or knowing they have a need. So the tech stack audit will, instead of being reactive like that, it'll be proactive. So any hotelier can come, they can tell us their tech stack, and we can run an audit that will tell them, okay, well, this property management system isn't rated as highly as this one is in your segment. Here's why this one has better reviews for hotels in Germany, as an example. And you're not using any contactless check-in software, but you do have a guest messaging platform that offers contactless check-in. If you're not leveraging that right now, you should. So what we want to do is add generative AI into that so that it could really be like a custom written report for every single user. So that'll kind of be the first foray for us. That'll come probably Q4.
Awesome. Sounds like some really cool stuff that you're working on, and really excited to see how Hotel Tech Report continues to grow. And you guys launched what, 6 years ago now? So it's about 6 years, 7 years in your
Yeah.
journey, and it feels like you're just getting started. It feels like just from this conversation, some of the conversations I've had with Adam on the outside of this,
Yeah.
it feels like you're just getting started, and that's really exciting for the space. I think there's so much opportunity in a hospitality space to really connect a lot of the dots. There's so many different property management systems. There's so many different property management companies, different hotels all over the world. You talk about travel is what ties all these things together.
Yeah.
Being able to really make that more connectivity, that connected with that connectivity is going to be huge for hotels with global footprints and also local hotels, right? Like if you're a local bed and breakfast, sometimes you're going to get really cool guests coming from around the world to a small part of the world where They want that really personal experience. So being able to
Yep.
leverage that and see that connectivity and find those opportunities to grow and evolve, I think is going to be huge in the space. That's pretty cool that you're on the forefront of that.
Totally. I think it's a snowball effect. Everything
Yeah.
it's not necessarily that it gets easier, but as you get bigger, the smaller decisions or that you make have more leverage around them. And so something like a tech stack audit we couldn't have done 3 years ago, 4 years ago, because we just didn't have the data to do it. And so it just opens up new doors along the way, which is really really exciting.
That's awesome. What are you most excited for? What trend or thing that you're most excited for that you all are building as it relates to hospitality as we head into the back half of this year and looking at 2024?
Yeah, I think it really is. So, number one, the tech stack audit. Number two, we'll be launching an offers program where vendors can offer exclusive promotions to hoteliers to drive demand for a specific need period and give hoteliers even more monetary value. So, those are two projects I'm really excited about. The tech stack audit is really just even for thinking about like a GM who doesn't really think about technology from day to day, like we want to give them the tools that all they have to do is fill out like a 4 or 5 field form, and we can give them a full in-depth analysis of their tech stack. It's not like one of these 40-page canned analyst reports. It's super expensive and time consuming. We want to make it really easy to digest and understand. And that's not just, I mean, that works for experienced GMs. It works for brokers. You could imagine a broker selling a hotel and telling the new owner they're looking for new cash flow opportunities. Hey, this hotel doesn't have upsell software. Upsell software can increase total RevPAR by 30%. And when you're buying a property, that's factoring into your underwriting. So a broker
Yeah.
could be using that. A buyer could be using that. Hospitality students could be using it. They could go do an internship. They can pull out this analysis and they can instantly add value to their employers. So I think everything that we're doing is trying to say, I think, a lot of industries tend to have the Wall Street effect where like they want to like make it seem as complicated as possible so that whether it's, the gatekeepers and whether it's consultants or technology companies, whoever it is can get paid more for it. What we want to do is make it really easy to understand because we know that's going to grow the market, that the more people understand about technology and the more they feel confident with it, the more adoption of technology there will be, which ends up turning into better and more consistent service for guests and better experiences in terms of an HR perspective for hotel employees. There's nothing worse than being stuck in the basement of a downtown San Francisco hotel where you're in the back office, but it's actually just a dungeon in the basement and you're crunching numbers in Excel all day. Like that nobody is that when they come up and they take a quick front desk shift while the front desk is in the restroom or grabbing lunch. Nobody's friendly after they're doing data crunching in a basement dungeon. Like, so what
Yeah.
we want to do is take all that boring stuff, the administrative tasks, the tedious stuff, make it really seamless. That's what technology is all about, to make everyone happier, which makes them better at delivering hospitality.
Love that. I mean, that's one of OmniBoost's core of our essence, right? Is giving create humans more time to be creative, right?
Yeah.
With a lot of our integrations and what we do is help automate the mundane, right? And that's kind of where we step in. And I love how you talked about technology needs to be intuitive, right? And I always kind of like use our example. We have a new product, Owners Portal, that's designed for independent owned property management, right? And the idea behind the owners portal what we're building is something that's very intuitive, right? An experienced GM or a new GM or a student can step in and leverage that tool. I
Yeah.
think technology by nature, we went through a period where we made technology overcomplicated. And I think we're realizing what we need to do. And you brought this up at the top of the show, an Instagram like feel. Like if you know how to use Instagram and you know how you can use any technology that has the same look and feel, that intuitive design to products, I think is huge. So it's really exciting that to hear
Right.
that the things that you're doing is, I mean, similar to us. I mean, that's why we align so well with HDR is
Yep.
how do we create tools and processes that we can make easier and make it more intuitive so that you can spend more time being hospitable, being with your
Totally.
guests and leveraging that. Cause as you said, no one wants to be, no one's super friendly after sitting in a dungeon crunching numbers all day.
Yep.
So I love it. I'm really excited to see what y'all got coming and really cool. So as we close out, I always like to ask a question. What is your worst travel experience and what is your best travel experience that you've had that like sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, totally. Should I stick to? I'll stick to hotel experiences off the top of my head. So We could start with the worst one, which was really a bummer for me. But we grew up in my family going to this hotel called the Mauna Kea in Hawaii on the Big Island every single year. My mom went there every year growing up. It's this iconic hotel. It was owned by the Japanese for a while, and they sold it to Paul Allen, one of the founders of Microsoft. And now it's, I think, like a Hilton, one of those like Unbound collection or one of those. And so it was like some of our best childhood memories. We went there. They stuck us in some like horrible, like wrong rooms when we got there. They had no idea that we had, like, as a family, had come there for like 40 years. They let the property completely go. We get into the room, and there's like this massive wall in the room. We actually have a family group thread that's a joke of this experience called Shrunken Art Collectors. But there's a piece of 4x4 art on the wall in this massive room, like a, 12 foot wall, 10, 12 foot ceiling. And there's like a 4-inch piece of art in the middle of the wall. And we were joked that they're a shrunken art gallery in our hotel room. But we ended up leaving the property, going to another property nearby. They were great about understanding that they, like, the GM knew that they let service go and underinvested in renovations, and that they just let the public into the beach. So it was like crazy. But that was kind of like one of the biggest letdowns hotel wise, sadly. So
Yeah, that's
hopefully,
tough, especially because it's got so many childhood memories attached to it. That
yeah, and it's not just us. Like, you walk around LA and you'll see people with like Mauna Kea shirts. It's just like a thing. Like everyone's been there basically. So it's sad that they let that property go, but that apparently they're putting some money into it. So hopefully they can turn it around. And then best experience I would say is Chileno Bay in Los Cabos, in Cabo, in Mexico. Just some of the best service I've ever had. Incredible property. But I always kind of like compare rooms to Vegas, because I think Vegas has the best quality hotel rooms of anywhere. And so they're like Vegas level rooms in Mexico. Incredible pool, incredible beach, little taco shack right on the sand. But I think the thing that really stood out to me was we went to their sister property, Esperanza, for dinner one night that has an incredible restaurant overlooking the arch in Cabo. And in the lobby, they had someone rolling cigars, like local cigars. I had one. I only smoke cigars on vacation, but like I had one, and I don't know anything about cigars, but I was like, holy shit, this is like the best cigar I've ever had in my life by far. And we were leaving the next day, and so I texted the concierge from WhatsApp. I texted them to see if we could get some of those cigars, and they sent someone over to the property to go buy me some out of petty cash, and then brought it to me right before my flight so that I had them for the road. So that was like, that's just like one example, but it was like throughout the experience. You're in the pool during the day. They have a bartender coming around with like Jello shots and like fresh fruit on like a floating bar tray. Like, everything was just completely perfect. The spa was incredible. So highly recommended the Chileno Bay auberge in Cabo.
love that. I think it's really easy. It's really easy to take those things for granted. Those little just things that make your stay more enjoyable, and then also just that extra step of service, knowing that they could have said no, they could have done that, but just to take the extra step to run and go do that for you makes a big lasting impression, and also makes a customer for life, and a lifetime value of a customer who will return on a regular basis versus
Totally.
maybe never coming back, and that's a big difference. And I think as humans, I understand if the world travel is today, we're seeing so many issues with flights being overbooked and this and that. Like, everyone's trying to get back out there. Just that extra step of being human, the human element of being able to do those things will always stand out in our minds. We're humans. We want connection. We want that interaction. And it's when you hear people's travel stories, it's always those little things. So I think that's a great way to end this episode, right? When we talk about us as data companies, and leveraging all that data and how we can utilize that to be more efficient. All that is said, that at the end of the day, the data needs to be used to make the human element of the experience
Yep.
how much more enjoyable. And I think it's so cool that that's the thing that sticks out in your mind as a travel story. So, Jordan, I really appreciate you coming on. I have one final question as a twin. Are you fraternal or identical with Adam?
So it's a tricky question because we never have done the blood test, but we're highly confident that we're identical. Let's put it that way.
Love it. Have you ever had that moment where, like, you called Adam and you felt like he was not feeling well, or whatever, that ESP moment where you just called him, or he called you in a time of need? Have you ever had those experiences?
We've had a few of those. We had one time in college where we had both had girlfriends for like 2 or 3 years each, like long term. We went to college together, but we were on the same floor in our junior year, but we were like opposite ends of the dorm. And there's probably like 50 dorms in between us. And I went to go to Adam's room to tell him I had broken up with my girlfriend. There was no like lead up to this. Like he wasn't prepared for it. It just kind of happened suddenly. So I went to go walk to his room to tell him. And there was a common room, 25 rooms, then us on the ends. And Adam was in the common room at the halfway point, and he told me that he had just broken up with his girlfriend. So there's that one. And then there's another one where had Adam over for dinner. I found out my wife was pregnant, and I had Adam and his wife over for dinner, and we went to tell them, and we found out that day they had found out that his wife was pregnant, and so we went on the app to see check due dates, and the girls had the same due date.
No
so
way.
We've had a few of those.
Yeah, no, as my twin brother and I are fraternal, but we're like a 74% match, and we definitely have those moments, like multiple moments where he's picked up the phone to call me or me him, and just like they needed it, and there's no reasonable explanation why he decided to pick up the phone that day, but it just happened. So I always love to ask that question to twins. It's something that everyone jokes is twin telepathy real, and I'm like, yeah, there's just something there because you shared a womb together. And my brother and I went to college together too. We lived apart freshman year, and we're like, nah, we can't do this. So we ended up living together sophomore, junior. We didn't actually move out until he finally moved away from the Midwest. He went to Colorado for a job, and then up to Fargo. And so for 25 years we lived together. It's crazy. You couldn't pull us apart. So I totally get it. Jordan, super cool. How can our listeners find you? Where can they get involved, learn more about what you're doing, what Hotel Tech Report's doing? How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can connect with me on LinkedIn or hoteltechreport.com. We're constantly rolling out new updates, and we have some really cool stuff coming in the next few months here. So keep checking back for more awesome technology products and stories.
Awesome. Well, Jordan, really appreciate it. I will make sure to link your LinkedIn and the website for Hotel Tech Report in the comments. So if you want to get in touch with Jordan, follow up there. Definitely follow along. Jordan, we're excited to see what's happening. Thanks for being a part of Hospitable, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me, Rob. Great conversation.
Absolutely. And for y'all, make sure you like, subscribe, do all the tier 1 things to stay in the know. Make sure you click that button on whatever platform you're listening to. Until next time, stay well.